Hello artists! Today we're going to make some 3D fan dioramas or scenes. You can make them simple or you can make them a little more complex. They're a lot of fun. Once you learn how to make the basic shape, you can make small ones, big ones, hook them together. The sky's the limit. So let's get started. Okay, first I'd like to give you a little tour of some of the fan dioramas or scenes that I have made. This so that will give you some ideas for the possibilities of what you can do. Anything you can imagine, you can make a little diorama for. This one here, you can see has a background with snow on it and hills, and in the foreground or on the fan in the front, there's a little snow person and a snow dog. And you can see how 3D they look. Kind of looks like you could walk through the scene. On this one, the background has some words. It's made for a thank you card for somebody. This one is the most detailed of them all. It is a little city scene. So for this one, I decided to, on the background, draw buildings, all different. Made a sky in the background too. And then in the foreground, I decided to make a little city park. So there's a fountain for people to play in, and there's a couple of kids out there waving to each other. There's a tree, some bushes. You can put anything you want to in your diorama. So be thinking about what you would like for your background and what you'd like for the foreground or on the fan. All right, the supplies that you will need for this project are 2 pieces of paper that are the same size, and a little bit of extra paper that you can cut apart to make the figures for the front of your scene. You will need some tape, some scissors. If you have a stapler, that could come in handy, but you don't have to. Something to color with. A pencil might come in handy too. And a glue stick. These fan dioramas are made from 2 main parts. The base of it is made from a fan shape that you fold, and the background is made from the other piece of paper, which will fold and cut to the right shape, and then they're attached. So I'm going to show you how to make the fan base. You may know how to make a fan already. I'm just going to show the steps. You want to get your piece of paper and lay it out so that it's long ways going across. That way the fan base will be nice and big. If you fold it this way, the fan will be much smaller. You could totally make a tiny little fan diorama if you want to, but just be aware. It's probably easier to start with a bigger one for your first one. So you're going to fold the bottom edge up about 1 inch. You can measure it with a ruler, but I'm just going to look at it and say, yeah, that's about right. I'm going to match the edges up and crease it, a nice firm crease all the way across. You're going to flip the paper over and you're going to match that upper edge with the fold that forms there. Match them up as best you can. Carefully press it down and firmly press it. You're going to want to go slowly and carefully on this part. It's really tempting to go really fast, to try to just fold a fan really quickly, but that's when you do that, they get much more crooked and uneven, and it's really good to have nice, firm, sharp creases on these. And just do your best job on this, and see if you can just keep things straight and even. The next step is to make the background sheet. So you need to get that piece of paper that was the same size as the fan sheet, and we're going to fold it in half. We're going to fold it in half the hamburger way. Not the hot dog way, but the hamburger way. If you do it skinny like this, it won't fit. It won't fit onto your fan. But if you do it the hamburger way. It will. So you're going to carefully fold it and crease it. Match those corners up as carefully as you can. And then this part later we will attach to the back after we decorate the background. But first we're going to cut it down a little shorter because you could leave it tall like this if you want to. But for me, I feel like that kind of overpowers the fan a little bit. I think it feels a little too tall. And for example, on my snow person one, I cut it down about this much. So what you do is you just kind of hold it together here. It's not taped or glued. It's just holding it together. And I get a pencil and I look at it and I think, well, I don't want it to be really short. That wouldn't give me much background at all. I think I want it more than half, but not all the way up, maybe about here. And I put my fan aside and I make sure I'm going to mark the fold. So this is the open end. This is the fold side. I'm going to mark the fold maybe right about here. And then I'm just going to draw a straight line across as straight as I can. Not worrying about being perfect. As we know, there's no such thing as perfect. And then about over here, I'm going to start to curve it down. That will give me that nice curved edge on the side like this has. You can do this in your own style. You can cut it as big or small as you like. For your background, you can make whatever shape you want. And now keep it folded and we just cut straight across like this. I'm saving the scrap here to make some of the figures later. And then we open it up and there it is. There's your background. Later on, after it's all colored, we will attach it to the fan base like this with tape or staples. But for now, we're going to leave it like this so it's a nice flat surface to draw our background on. Now my job is going to be to design the background and then color it in. And I'm doing this before I attach it onto the scene because can you imagine, let me just show you this example. For any of them, you know, if I hooked it together first and then try to draw back there, it just isn't going to work. I need a nice flat piece to draw on. And on this one, I laid it down and drew that city scene of buildings. By the way, if you do buildings, just try to do tall rectangles and then maybe some with a fancy top, maybe points and arches on top and lots of windows. If you want to do city buildings, that's kind of how you do it. And you try to make them interesting with different shaped windows and all that. On this one, I'm going to do some hills and I'm going to do a sunset. I think that would just be pretty, and I also think it is calming, and I kind of feel like that would be nice today. So I'm going to just start drawing in. There's a hill that goes all the way down to there. Now I'm going to make a hill over to here. And then I'm going to draw in a simple sun shape. And I'm going to maybe make some really light lines out to remind me that I'm going to maybe make some rays going out. And then I'm going to color it. Okay, there's my background, the hills and the sunset. So now is the time that I'm going to attach it to my fan base here. So I'm going to take my background and just gently fold it to get that crease again, and then decide which side I want to have up. I think I'm going to have this side up because the tape is not showing when it's up this way. Then I'm going to take my fan base and put the flat edge down here around my fan, and then just match up those outside edges. So this edge and this edge. And then the middle matches up as well because that was that same size. Doesn't that look cool? So I could either staple it here or tape it. And I'm going to go with the tape because I think it's just, for me, it's easier to manage. So here comes some tape. I'm going to hold these pieces together so they match up, and as carefully as I can put the tape on there and just fold it back. And then I can maybe put another piece here for now to hold things in place. Just make sure they're evened up as much as I can and fold that down. And then keep going. And I think I'm going to go all the way over to this other edge and match up this background page with that first folded edge I come to, and put some tape on it. Fold it over and put a little bit more here so that it stays together really well and I don't have little holes and gaps that show. And if I have gaps that show, I'll just come back and put more tape on it when I notice that. So I'm going to put that last piece there, and then I can set it up, and you can see, there it is. I'm going to make some trees, I think, and I might even make like a couple little tiny animals. So I'm going to want this. Where are my scissors? I'm going to cut out some pieces ahead of time, and as I am planning and getting ready to draw, I'm going to measure my pieces each time just to make sure it's the size I want. So I'm thinking if I make a tree that's that big, that to me feels too big, so I'm going to make it shorter. My piece of paper shorter. And it feels a little bit too wide for this also, so I'm going to make it a little narrower. So maybe a tree that I drew on here and cut out would probably be about the right size. So maybe I'll make another couple pieces like this that I could draw trees on. And then the little animals that I draw, I would want them to be smaller than the trees, but I also don't want them to be so small that they get lost in those little folds. So what if I made an animal for my scene here about this big and put it in the front there? That would probably be good. If I made an animal that was only this big, I mean, for one thing, that would be pretty hard to make an animal on, but if it was only that big and it was there, it kind of gets lost. So I want to make sure they're big enough to be seen, but not too big so that they look out of place. Okay, now I have my trees. I drew 3 trees, and I drew a little bunny rabbit, and I drew a deer to put in my peaceful sunset scene. So now I just need to decide where I want to place these on the fan. And I like to put them at in different levels, farther back, closer up, and whoops, in different little slots, so they're not all just in the same place. It makes it look more interesting. And what I'm going to do, so I'll probably put my little deer here. And my little bunny rabbit will go over here. I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to still play around with it a little bit. I'm going to put some glue. This is that purple glue that dries clear. I'm going to put that just on the bottom part. That's all it's going to need. And I'm going to set this tree in here so you can see me do that. I think I'll just put it right here. And so you just kind of press it on carefully onto that little place. And then you can see my one tree is in. So now I'm going to finish gluing the pieces in. And the other way you can put them in if you don't have a glue stick or you don't want to use glue is you can always use tape and just get a small piece and make, you know how you fold it around, make what's called a tape bubble or a tape roll so it's sticky on the outside, and just put that on the back of your little figure, animal, or whatever it is you're putting in there. And I think I'm going to put that one right here by that tree and just press it on. That's how you do it. So I'm going to go ahead and attach the rest of my pieces to my scene, and then we'll see how it looks. Okay, all the pieces are in now, and here's what it looks like. I like it. I love how it gives that feeling of being able to sort of walk through that space. And this will be really pretty to set up on a table or somewhere at eye level where people can just walk by and look at it. And I guarantee if you make one of these, when people walk by, they're going to be like, oh, that's so interesting. It draws you in, and it's fun to look at. I want to show you one last thing. And this is this is just something that I realized would be amazing. If you made 4 of these scenes the same size, so I have 4 now. They're not the same size and they don't really go together, but if they were the same size, you could attach them like this. Wouldn't that be cool? You could do like 4 seasons: summer, fall, winter, spring, or you could do 4 different rooms in a house, or you could do a book report. Your teacher would love it. You would get extra credit if you did like the beginning of the story, something about the characters, something about one of the most exciting scenes, and then you could end it off by showing how it ends up and how what happens at the end or something like that. That's just a suggestion for anybody who likes doing this and wants to take it to the next level. But have fun making something as simple or as detailed or complicated or not as you want. Enjoy.